Welcome to Psychology the Daf. We are in Gemara Eruvin, Daf Nun Daled. In this Gemara, we hear about an interesting story of a student and a teacher. And Rabbi Perida had this student who it took him a long time to understand the sugya. And the Gemara says that he would teach it to him 400 times. You can imagine the patience of such a teacher. So he would teach him 400 times, and that would usually do the trick. One time, Rabbi Perida had to go somewhere, and so he was trying to teach the student the 400 times, and after the 400 times, the student still was not able to grasp it. And Rabbi Perida asked why, and the student said, because I felt that you were going to leave at any minute because you had to go on this task. And Rabbi Perida, instead of becoming impatient, he reviewed it with him again, another 400 times. And the Gemara over there says, because of that, he and his generation was zocha to the world to come. Now, it's interesting because Ben Yoyada tries to understand what is the actual schar, what is the sachar, I should say, what is the sachar, what is the reward, why specifically did this activity merit it, and why only the second 400 times merited that. And Ben Yoyada says a beautiful idea. He says that it's one thing if you have a student that it takes 400 times to teach him, but if you spend 400 times and you're in a rush, and you spend 400 times teaching him the piece and he still doesn't get it, that you would be patient and do it all over again. That is an unusual merit. Now, there's another thought I also want to say, which is that it's a little bit strange what it has to do with the generation. I understand Rabbi Perida was zocha to get Olam Haba, to get a share in the world to come. But why his generation? And the Ben Yoyada, therefore, I would assume, learns it more metaphorically. He doesn't mean generation as in the people of his generation, but he learns that there's this mystical idea. We know that souls are reincarnated, and also souls are kinds of branches coming from a similar root, so different souls come from different roots. So when he meant generation, he meant literally generation, that which comes from you. And he meant the Gemara meant to say that all of Rabbi Perida's other root souls throughout history merited Olam Haba because of that. Well, that answers the question, although it's a very mystical answer. Perhaps the simpler pshat is that if such a generation has such a patient Rebbe, then that type of patience would lead to the a trickle-down effect of an entire generation having the ability to study and learn Torah better, which would lead them to Olam Haba. It reminds me a bit of my father, Zichrono Livracha, who was a master mechanech for his basically entire adult life, for something close to 60 years, and he he taught many teachers how to teach, and in doing so, he was able to spread to many people. And he indeed, in his teaching, was extremely patient. Just to give one example of how he used his patience to teach others how to teach so that they could teach better and thereby elevate a generation, I would learn from him that if he was teaching a class and he would ask a question, typically if you ask a question, then the students raise their hand. And what my father, Zichrono Livracha, said was that, there are kids that think a lot slower. They're not necessarily less intelligent. They could be, but they might not be less intelligent at all. They just might be slower thinkers. And some of them think slowly and even more deeply. And the current educational system rewards many things that are not necessarily educational, like it rewards fast thinking. So the teacher calls on the kid that raises their hand first, and my father would deliberately wait 5 seconds before calling on anybody, and he would ask the children to not raise their hands for 5 seconds. And this way, it gave them time to think. And that just gives you one idea of his beautiful methods, and how, yes, methods like that could actually help a whole generation be zocha to Olam Haba. I do want to add one other point. Again, thinking a bit about my father as well, especially in his later years. My father was very busy, very, very busy for most of my childhood, but as he got older, he really changed his tune in trying to be extremely patient. And one of the things that he would do is when he was listening to somebody, he was fully listening, and you never got the sense that he was going to run off and do something else. And it's important to know in this story of the Gemara with Rabbi Perida that the student was disrupted because he felt it wasn't so much that Rabbi Perida was running off, but he felt that Rabbi Perida was going to run off, and that he felt unsettled, and that can have a bad effect on a lot of people. We talk about like spending quality time with a spouse, with a child, but even that quality time, there's a sense of being rushed, then it could affect the whole feel of it. And this was something that my father, Baruch Hashem, in his later years was really zocha to do right. And it left an enormous impression on me, although as a younger person, I struggled with it a great deal too, especially in our generation of multitasking or even more. But it was a fantastic midah and something for us all to keep in mind, that when you're spending time with somebody, that you don't give off the sense that you have to be somewhere else and that you're in a rush, even if you're not in a rush. So, you might only have 3 minutes to spend with your child. You come home and you have to run out in 5 minutes and take care of something, and your child is asking you a bunch of questions, or your spouse. You still can leave in those 3 minutes, but in those 3 minutes, you don't have to act like you have to be somewhere else, and you can really focus.